The Lord be with you. A reading from the Holy Gospel according to Matthew. When Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of King Herod, behold, Magi from the east arrived in Jerusalem, saying, "Where is the newborn King of the Jews? We saw his star at its rising and have come to do him homage." When King Herod heard this, he was greatly troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Assembling all the chief priests and scribes of the people, he inquired of them where the Christ was to be born. They said to him, "In Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it has been written through the prophet, 'And you, Bethlehem, land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, since from you shall come a ruler who is to shepherd my people Israel.'" Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search diligently for the child. When you have found him, bring me word, that I too may go and do him homage." After their audience with the king, they set out. And behold, the star that they had seen at its rising preceded them, until it came and stopped over the place where the child was. They were overjoyed at seeing the star, and on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary, his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. They then opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to return to Herod, they departed for their country by another way. The Gospel of the Lord. Gospel wipe away our sins.
Good morning, everyone. There are two jobs in our country where you can be less than 50% accurate or 50% successful and still make 6 or 7 or 8 figures. That's being a baseball player. You only have to bat 300. 30% of the time you got to get on base. And a weather person. Half an inch or the dusting went to what? 7 inches. So I'm happy that you battled the weather and came to Mass this morning. For those of you who are going to be coming to the volunteer appreciation dinner, I'm sorry, but we had to cancel. It was just way too much, and we didn't want anybody to get hurt moving around in the parking lot or driving back and forth from your homes. However, all the food was made, so after the 10 and the 11:30 this morning, if you're one of the volunteers, come on over, we'll give you a nice little package of food to take home. And if there's any leftover food, none of it will go to waste. It'll be taken to charities tomorrow morning. When I was doing this homily, I received 2 beautiful insights from our 2 good deacons, from Deacon Joe and Deacon Jerry. Deacon Jerry asked me a good theological question this morning. As you heard that reading read, did you ever wonder why, if Herod really wanted to find the child, why didn't he just send his soldiers with the 3 kings on their journey, or he himself go? And maybe he didn't want to give them any kind of hint that he was up to no good, or maybe he didn't really want to find out if it was the Messiah, because what would that have meant for his own life? And Deacon Joe's insight was just a simple question: what light do you follow? Well, we knew what light the 3 kings followed, and we knew what light Herod followed. Herod followed that very empty light that gives no real brightness, that gives no real warmth or love. And that would have been the light of Lucifer, right? Even Satan is called an angel of light, but it is a light that is empty, full of lies and no promises, or at least any good ones. But the 3 kings, on the other hand, followed this beautiful light, not just a simple star in the evening sky, but something that drew them to Bethlehem. Now, these three kings, as far as we know, were not Jewish. They were Gentiles. They had come from the east or the far east, and they were men that were learned, possibly scholars, on top of being royalty and kings, and they began their studies probably by looking at some of the Jewish scriptures, our Old Testament, what we call, but also studying the signs of the times, and even figuring out through the light of reason that there is one God, and that one God wants to break through human history and come and speak to his people. And this is a light that they followed, and I'm sure the journey wasn't just one day. The journey itself from where they left to get all the way to Bethlehem could have taken months, if not years, not including all the time that they were using for prayer and study beforehand. These three men were driven to find this God that was made man in the form of an infant, to come and do him homage, because they realized that God breaking through in human history was their means for hope. And it's amazing that as soon as Jesus is born, yes, we say his public ministry began when he was about 30 years old and lasted 3 years. But in some way, his public ministry began even from the cradle. Because as these three kings come to arrive there in Bethlehem and do homage for Jesus, he's already saving those who are outside of the Jewish faith. It means that he is the Messiah of the whole world. He was first presented, obviously, to the nation of Israel, being born of Mary, his stepfather Joseph. So he's a son of God through Judaism. But he's also a son of God to everyone else, as is quickly proven as the three magi prostrate themselves and kneel before him to do him great homage. There's also one other really cool reflection in all of this, is that the gifts themselves that they brought, they weren't chosen arbitrarily. These three wise men, by God's gift of grace and inspiration, chose those gifts very carefully. The first gift of gold was meant to give to a king. The second gift of frankincense or incense was meant to be given to a priest. And the third gift of myrrh was meant to be given for burial, for death. So each one gift symbolizes some aspect of Jesus' life. Obviously, King of Kings, he is the true high priest, but Jesus as high priest does not slaughter a lamb outside of himself like other priests did in those days. He was actually the priest and the victim at the same time. He did not offer anything else but himself. And these three wise men were able to see that, at least in some fashion, when they gave him those gifts. And I think that those wise men gave even greater gifts of themselves. When they laid down to worship in front of him, they also gave their very lives to this little infant. So yes, for Christmas, we celebrated that great solemnity of Jesus giving us a gift, the gift of himself to us. But Epiphany is rather now, what gifts do we bring? So I'll leave you with two questions. I already asked you one. Which light do you follow? And on this beautiful day of Epiphany, which gifts will you bring? God bless you.